Well, it's confirmed the Dodgers are into leather. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday here on Dodgers Latest. A happy Tuesday, a happy flight from Philadelphia to Los Angeles. The Dodgers taking the day off before Game 3 of the Division Series heads to the West Coast and opens up at Dodger Stadium tomorrow. Yoshinobu Yamamoto set to throw against Aaron Nola. We'll have a full breakdown of that as well, but we've got to talk about what went down Monday night on the south side of Philly. The Dodgers, I think it's an absolute shocker, right? I don't think anybody had it that the Dodgers not only would win a game in Philly, but win both games in Philly. Remember, they had lost 7 straight games in Philadelphia, 7 straight postseason games in Philadelphia, and they had never won a game in the postseason at Citizens Bank Park. They were 0-5 there, but the Dodgers walk out of there with 2 wins. Bullpen, it was totally on brand for the Dodgers, right? Some clutch hitting, Teoscar Hernandez doing his thing, Kike Hernandez doing his thing. The pitching was amazing. The bullpen was a mess. But the Dodgers come out of there up 2-0, 1 win away from advancing to the National League Championship Series. And for last night, when we talk about that the Dodgers were into leather, that's what it was, right? The defense totally helps out the Dodgers in this remarkable 4-3 victory over the Phillies. And let's break it down. In the 6th inning, Alec Baum hits a ground ball to Miggy Rojas, who was playing third base. And Miggy knows he's not going to... I guess he thinks he can beat Trey Turner, who was at second base. He can beat him to third as opposed to throw across the infield. And Miggy... I've never seen Miggy run that fast. And he ends up beating Trey Turner to the bag by sliding into third base, having his glove touch third base before Trey Turner's foot gets there. That was a huge play to end the inning. And then, of course, the 9th inning, really, the Dodgers flashed some leather there. That bunt, which I still don't understand quite what the Phillies were doing there. They're down a run, and I get it. You want to put more pressure on the Dodgers. But then you have Bryson Stott bunt, and here was the genius of the play. As the Dodgers were making a pitching change in that inning, Mookie Betts brought it up in the huddle over on the mound to do the wheel play. What's the wheel play? Well, that's when the third baseman comes in, the shortstop covers third, the second baseman covers first, and then Freddie Freeman responded to, well, if we're going to do the wheel play, that leaves second base open, so we don't want the guy bunting to go from home to second base. So Freddie Freeman would then sprint over from first base to cover second base. It all went down. Stott bunted right to Muncy, fielded it, threw it to Mookie Betts at third base. They got Castellano there, who, by the way, almost took Mookie Betts into the Dodger dugout there. Got the out, and then Max Kepler comes up. He hits a ground ball wide of first over to Freddie Freeman's right. Freddie fields it, throws to second. There's Mookie Betts again. They get the force at second, and then finally the piece de resistance, Trey Turner, hits a ground ball to Tommy Edman, who I don't know if he pulled the Chuck Knobloch. I don't know what it was, but Tommy bounced it over to first base, and Freddie Freeman got on his hands and knees, dug it out, kept his foot on the bag. Dodgers win it 4-3, and man, come out of there with a commanding 2-0 lead. It's the first of 3 wins, and the Dodgers are trying to get back to the League Championship Series, and it looks like they may even play the Brewers because the Brewers took a 2-0 lead over the Cubs. But man, what an absolute reality show, soap opera, adventure series, whatever you want to call it. Dodgers end up beating the Phils for the second straight night, get the win, and get out of there with a 2-0 lead with one more game to close out to get back to the League Championship Series. Amazing. And then part of the amazingness, part of the guys who get a lot of credit is Will Smith, right? He had a big 2-run single in the 7th inning, and we're going to get into why the 7th inning has been so important for the Dodgers this postseason in tomorrow's show. Will Smith, that was his first hit. Remember, he has a fractured hand. He hasn't, he took most of September off to try to get well. Dodgers have had this sort of platoon situation where Ben Rortvedt opens the game behind the plate. Will Smith will then come up and pinch hit for Ben at some point in the game and then stay in the game to catch. Will Smith doesn't bat ninth, so that's usually not, he shouldn't have been up in that position. So Dave Roberts really looks like a genius there, using Will. And for Will, that single was his first hit in almost a month. September 9th was the last time Will Smith had a hit. That was against the Colorado Rockies, but it was a huge hit, gave the Dodgers a 3-0 lead. They added a fourth run, which turned out to be the difference, but Will Smith was such an important key in last year's playoff run offensively, and of course everything he does with the pitching. But an absolute genius move, and I would imagine that would be, unless we see Will Smith start a game, maybe that's going to be the routine until Will's 100%, where they start Rortvedt. Rortvedt pitches catches 4 or 5 innings, gets an at bat or two, and then Will Smith comes up and spells him. And I'll tell you what. Again, Will Smith does not bat ninth. He would not have been up in that situation in a normal game of play, and yet he comes up with that 2-run single and helps the Dodgers get out in front and sink the Phillies in another big 7th inning for the Dodgers. And, of course, you can't say the Dodgers and you can't talk about pitching and you can't talk about Blake Snell. Man, what has he done? He has been amazing. 6 scoreless last night against the Phillies, 1 hit, 9K. He's now given up 3 earned runs in his last 32 innings of work going back to the regular season. He's given up 2 earned runs in 16 playoff innings. And he becomes the first guy ever, let me underline that, ever, to have 4 or more playoff starts with 9 strikeouts and doesn't allow more than 2 hits in a game. No one in the history of the game has made 4 playoff appearances, struck out 9 or more, and given up 2 or less hits. That is our man, Blake Snell. Unbelievable, right? 1 hit, 6 scoreless, 9K, gets the win. And it's just been an absolute rock, has been everything advertised that the Dodgers were thinking about when they signed him to that big contract. And I go back to, these injuries that the Dodgers have had this year, for as much as they were worrisome during the regular season, now that we're in the postseason, these tires are not wearing thin. The tread is still there. So you've got these remarkable outings from Yamamoto, who's going to pitch Game 3, from Snell. Tyler Glasnow is able to bounce back. You're able to have these games where pitchers usually in the postseason don't go deep because they're into over 200 innings or some even more. But for Blake Snell, it's like a guy, you put him in mothballs for the whole season, and he comes up and he's pitching well. And I'll tell you what, for Blake Snell, the biggest, obviously the biggest critique of him is, he doesn't go deep in games. He's fragile. Look at 2020, how much as he was dominating the Dodgers and Kevin Cash took him out of the game. I got a buddy of mine who said the only person that can stop Blake Snell in the postseason is Kevin Cash. And so far, that is true. Another masterful outing by the left-hander, Snellzilla. Again, 4th playoff outing with 9 or more strikeouts and 2 or less hits. No one has ever done that in the history of the game. That is something for Blake Snell. And, at this point, we'll see probably Blake in the League Championship Series. He is probably done. Dodgers have announced that Yoshinobu Yamamoto will pitch Game 3, which will be Wednesday. Game 4 will probably be Tyler Glasnow. Maybe it's some combination of Glasnow and Kershaw. And then Game 5 would be Ohtani Saturday night in Philadelphia. Of course, that if we get to a Game 5, that'd be crazy. The Dodgers will have lost 2 straight games, and that will be an all-hands-on-deck kind of situation. But Blake Snell, my goodness, my hat's off to you, my man. What an outing. What a postseason. And that 9th inning, usual chaos for the Dodgers, right? Dodgers are swimming along, no problems, up 4-1. And instead of bringing in Roki Sasaki, up 4-1, in a clean inning to close the game out, they bring in Blake Treinen. And Treinen immediately gives up 3 straight hits. All hell breaks loose. Alex Vesia comes in, kind of calms things down. And then Roki Sasaki comes in and gets the last out. So the question is, Will we ever see Blake Trinan again? It seems like we're not going to see Tanner Scott. It's got to be, an 11-0 game on either side where I think we see Tanner Scott in another game. Will we see Blake Trinan? Blake Trinan had pitched so well in the postseason last year, but he just has not been able to do a darn thing this year. Vesia has been a lock, right? He pitched pretty well in game 1, pitched pretty well in game 2, despite struggling against the Reds. Seems like there's some trust there. We saw Emmett Sheehan pitch well in relief. We saw Glasnow pitch in relief. And we've seen Sasaki close 2 games. So the question, obviously, to Dave Roberts is, well, why didn't you just start the 9th inning with Sasaki? And I'll be honest with you. I will criticize Dave Roberts when needed, but I kind of was with Blake in that situation. I was kind of with Dave Roberts in that situation. You're up 4-1. Put Blake Trinan out there. Put him in a situation where he could succeed. Get him some reps. You don't think things are going to go horrifically wrong like that, and you always have Sasaki. And I guess the question, and Dave's answer was he didn't want to go with Sasaki because the guy's not a reliever. He's learning how to be a reliever in the playoffs, okay? He's 23 years old. He's coming off an arm injury. Having him pitch 2 days twice in 3 days, it's something he didn't really want to do because, again, he had never done it. Well, he got over that hump and did it. They say in the playoffs, you do the same things. That's how you got there. But sometimes you've got to sort of shoot the load. You've got to try something you've never tried before. And that's what they're doing really on an everyday basis with Sasaki and this whole piggybacking starters in the playoffs. I don't know if we'll see Blake Trinan again. It'll be curious to see if he's even on an LCS roster, the way he has been pitching of late. But Vesia's been great, and Sasaki now, I think, has shown the Dodgers that, all right, he can pitch, 2 days and, twice in 3 days. Dodgers have been fortunate to have these days off between games 1 and 2, to have that rest, so he's not literally pitching in back-to-back days. I think Sasaki seems to be cool under pressure at his young age, and I think now the next test is going to have him pitch back-to-back games, which I think that's what the Dodgers are going to need. But either way, the Dodgers are in fantastic shape, up 2-0, ready to shut the door down against the Phillies. Yoshinobu Yamamoto will pitch on Wednesday. It looks like it's going to be Aaron Nola for the Phillies with Ranger Suarez ready to back him up. If there's a game 4, it looks like it'll be Glasnow. That'll be Thursday. That'll be a back-to-back situation. And then off day on Friday, and then if there is a game 5, it'll be Ohtani back at Citizens Bank Park. Dodgers trying to put the end to this. Remember, you can always hit me up right there, J-Rod Show, Instagram, and on X. And, of course, we love to hear your comments. Keep liking, subscribing, hit that thumbs up button. We love being part of the community. Dodgers ready to put things away. Going to meet the media today in L.A., and then Yamamoto, once again, gets a chance to close it out at home. I'm Jim Rodriguez. And remember, it's always time for playoff Dodger baseball.